Started now. And we have our panelists, Dr. Upasona Ghosh, Dr. Revati Phalkey, and Shibaji Bose. I believe has Dr. Shibaji Bose been able to join the session?
Yes, I have joined. Thank you.
Okay. And you can see that Dr. Upasona Ghosh has been a former ED as well. She's the coordinator for the TWG that they will be presenting today. Dr. Revati Phalkey is the chair on the thematic working group, and Dr. Shibaji Bose is the communications lead for the group. So I will let Renzo take over to continue for the session.
Thank you very much, Kranti, and good morning, sunny morning, I suppose, in Dubai. And I'm joining you from Manila. It's already afternoon here. Our colleagues from India, it's, I think, also afternoon. And for Revati, it's early in the morning in London. So, you know, good day to everybody. And we're really, really thrilled to be part of this year's Emerging Voices fellowship. We only can wish that we are with you in the room, but we're with you in Zoom. And today we are going to discuss very important and pressing issues at the nexus of climate change and health systems. And so we are a new thematic working group of Health Systems Global, in which the Emerging Voices for Global Health is also a very important part of. And of course, in the past 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I'm sure your news feeds are filled with commentaries, editorials, posts about the recently concluded COP26. When you say COP26, it means that the world's governments have been negotiating for our future or about our future for 26 times and counting. But we in the health policy and systems research cannot wait for 26 years or another 26 years to enhance the ability of our health systems to address this perhaps most defining existential threat of our generation. So our format for this session will be very relaxed. It will be a conversation. Our colleagues from the thematic working group will also be sharing their perspectives and their emerging work in the area of climate resilient and environmentally sustainable health systems. We also want to hear from you, the new emerging voices. What are you doing? What are your perspectives and insights on this perhaps newest kid on the block of the field of health policy and systems research? How can we build health systems in the era of a changing climate? And so I guess to start off, I will ask my co-panelists, Revati, Upasona, and Shibaji, to talk a bit about this new thematic working group. Let's introduce our young and rapidly growing group to the Emerging Voices, and let's see how we can recruit them to be part of our gang. So I would like to first ask our chair, Revati Phalkey from the UK Health Security Agency. She's heading the Climate and Health Unit there, to briefly introduce the thematic working group. Revati, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Renzo, very much. And I will start with sharing a couple of slides. The idea is just to introduce you to what are the ideas that we would like to take forward through the thematic working group, but also together with colleagues around the world, and especially the young voices, because we've seen that young voices have really come to front and center of all discussions climate, especially for health as well. And this also applies to the health professionals. So all the health professionals in the room and whoever is online watching, this is also, as Renzo said, and my colleagues will reiterate, this is really something that we look to doing collectively together with as many of you as possible. And of course, I think the key principle underpinning why we put forward this thematic working group was really moving from risk to resilience. And yes, we have enough, I have to be careful, it's not enough, but we have just enough understanding of how the impacts of climate change are distributed. And of course, we don't know everything. And of course, there is a lot more that we can do from a methods perspective, from a risk attribution perspective, and research must stay ongoing. But what are we researching, or how is the practice of understanding the risks of climate change, and what are we ultimately doing with that knowledge that we have generated over the last couple of decades? I think that is the main belief with which we would like to take this work forward, that yes, understanding and monitoring risks are important, but acting upon them now is the time, because given the urgency and the scale of the problems that we have seen globally. Of course, like every other thematic working group, we would also like to contribute to the overall scholarship of how things are discussed within the frameworks, the improvement of the frameworks that are available to countries and practitioners to understand and to respond to the health system's impact of climate change, but also support them in maintaining that balance between the need to scale up function, given that almost half of the world's population still does not have stable access to universal health coverage. So what are the challenges of scaling up function, but at the same time improving the environmental sustainability of health systems? And then how do health systems, whether it's the facility or the whole system and the supporting systems as well, contribute to this discussion? The other thing is also, when we talk about resilience within health systems or sustainability within health systems, we talk about the resilience is all about the shock absorption capacity of this, and in a very, very kind of broad brush approach. It's about the absorption capacity of the system, but also the ability of the system to bounce back. But then bounce back to what? So the baseline. That if you look at how the carbon footprints of health systems, but also the adaptation ability of the systems across the world has not been uniformly mapped. So through this working group, we would like to take forward these conversations that, what baselines are we working towards, and how can we raise the baselines within systems for assessing their ability to sense, to detect, to respond, and to recover from the climate change impacts on the health system. And this is pretty much my penultimate slide. I think the group also would like to stress amongst all actors and stakeholders the urgency of with which we need to move within health systems. And we all know that health systems are massive beasts, and they take decades to move in any direction, and policy formulation is not the answer to it. Any policy formulation has to be followed by the practice side of things, and then the learning within these health systems has to be augmented with the feedback loops, so that as the system moves forward dynamically, it's bringing back the knowledge that it is learning to decide what kind of implementation research goes ahead, what kind of core research goes ahead, and how programming is aligned to the changing needs of the population. And of course, we would like to work with the knowledge ecosystems that are available regionally, subnationally. And of course, this is a long-term view, because we have 4 years. And of course, long-term and long-term. Given the urgency, 4 years is a long period of time for us to kind of think through. We should be starting now. Of course, the group also looks to providing a platform for people who are getting into this field, people who are at a very advanced academic thinking in this field, and to offer that peer-to-peer support for countries who are at the forefront of understanding and responding to the health system's impacts, but countries who are starting. We can't do this without strengthening the capacity and the capability of teams, research teams, practitioner teams, policy teams. So we hope to bring, and like other thematic working groups within HSG, bring together those 3 functions of policy, practice, and academia to take the field forward. And of course, also contribute as we go along over the next 4 years, collecting the evidence and sharing the evidence, so that this evidence becomes available uniformly to the best of the ability. I mean, in the end, we are a small player. but we are kind of starting up, so we want to have that. And then, of course, the health sector leadership. None of this can happen without a clear direction, which is set by colleagues together with the people who are bringing about the change at the ground level. And of course, the overall objective is to align, adjust, deliver, and learn from what is happening globally, but also set target for how are we bringing the metrics of measurements towards the 2030 goals, but not waiting until 2030 until this happens. And hopefully the thematic working group will survive for 8 years with a 4-year extension. And then through our efforts outlined before, promote policy relevant, action-oriented research and practice towards the development and implementation of evidence-based strategies that strengthen climate resilience and sustainability within health systems globally. And I will end with a reminder of the 2022 symposium of HSR. The call for abstracts is open. And I know that, again, my colleagues will reiterate, and Renzo has already mentioned, we are looking forward to increase the membership of the group, to bring in new ideas, to bring in new conversations, and also establish regional chapters as we go along. And I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Revati, for that succinct yet comprehensive intro about our thematic working group. May I ask now Upasona, who is our coordinator, to maybe briefly describe what are the activities, concrete activities. Revati already gave some high-level intro about the direction of the TWG, but what are some of the activities that are in store for our members, especially in the coming year, this 2022? Upasona, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's a great pleasure to talk to you all. It's remember me my EV days, so that's a great feeling itself. So I'm a public health anthropologist working in the area of climate change. So my role is what I feel like it's an unique position. Why I combining the anthropological view, the public health and the climate change. So that is, I will definitely like to talk to you more about about my research. But at present, as Revati has already mentioned and Renzo has already stressing upon, that we definitely have a lot of plan in the coming years. Specifically, we will be focusing on, as a thematic working group, to prioritizing the issues which are neglected from a very long time. That is the global level policy making are definitely there. As Renzo mentioned, that we have already 26 COPs we have passed. But how much it is reflected in the local level policy making, that's we are going to focus on through our TWGs by having the policy roundtable with multi-stakeholder platform. We wish to create a platform where the local participants, the community members, as well as the experts and the researchers like us can come together to discuss the issues at the local level. So that is our one of the biggest objective for this TWGs. And in terms of materializing this activities, we will like to come up with policy briefs or and also the webinars, the regional specific webinars, focusing each year to focusing one particular regions every year in terms of this the 4-year duration of the TWGs. We would definitely like to come up with a position paper of how this climate change and health system thing can be positioned in the global policy making for the health and health system. So in recent years, in terms of the 2022 is concerned, we will be definitely organizing presenting in some conferences, which will we are hoping that we will get a bigger audience, and you as a member are always welcome to collaborate with us and present your findings or your evidence, what you are generating, or if you are working in this or you are interested in this. And we have a plan of writing pieces, not only the academic piece, but also as well as the popular pieces like the blogs or the policy briefs or research briefs, but with an objective to reduce the gaps of policy making. So that is the overall objectives and the activities we are planning for the next couple of years. I hope that it will be successful, and you all are very, very welcome, and we are happy to listening to you and your country, looking forward to your contribution. Over to you, Renzo.
Thank you very much, Upasona. By the way, Upasona is my batchmate in EV4GH 2014.
Yes.
And so definitely this event is bringing us some nostalgic feelings. But you also mentioned about blog writing, and EV4GH, the emerging voices, are very good at it, right? Because thanks to the international health policies, I believe Christoph is in the room in Dubai, right? Is he there? I can see anyone waving, right? He's not there, but I know Christoph has been very much involved in the emerging voices, and he's really one of the brainchilds of the brains behind IHP, and hopefully more emerging voices will use that platform to talk about the climate change and health systems nexus. Speaking of writing, this is the amazing thing about our thematic working group, because it's so transdisciplinary. We're looking at climate change and health systems and all its different facets. Upasona mentioned she's an anthropologist, but in our group, we actually have a health systems researcher who's also a journalist. And that is Shibaji Bose, also from India. And Shibaji is the one in charge of our communication. So Shibaji, why don't you share with our emerging voices, our communication strategy, and perhaps you can invite them to our social media platforms and give them some instructions on how to join our growing league. So Shibaji, the mic is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Renzo. Yes. And this is an area which I really do love, and we would love to see all the TWGs, get from, X to Y in terms of communication, because there is so much to communicate and there are so many audiences. But for our TWG, we have some guiding principles, very simple guiding principles that we're going to share. We have this two-way process of communication. Although communications and impact implies an outward push of information, but this TWG views this as a two-way process of engagement, designed to stimulate both demand for our research, for our activities, but also research that is more responsive to end users' needs. So the first guiding principle I'd like to share is two-way process, and it is objective-led, or we can say issue-led. So instead of starting from an output and looking to disseminate it, our communication and impact activities and outputs will follow from the strategic objectives, our issues, which may mean using a variety of channels and approaches as appropriate for the issue and the target audience. So these objectives will tie into the broader pathway of change for each of the sites and for each of the issues and the the geographies. And this is we look to communication as being embedded into what we are doing. These are no standalone processes. These processes, as we had some initial foray through the HSG platform and our TWG, and then some social media stuff. But you will see that they will walk hand in hand, and they had walked hand in hand with the research design, what we want to say, to align with the objectives, the issues, and to work closely with them. And to this very important note, the emerging voices, just one thing more to share is, since it's a small team and it's a lot of things are voluntary, so we just follow the guideline of being there, because where possible, instead of creating new communication channels and activities, so this TWG will employ a being there approach of accessing and using existing channels. So if there are certain things that EV4 is very good at, So we will be working with them in order to spread activities and vice versa. Okay, and our consortium will, sorry, the TWG will pursue communication routes that are accessible to as many people as possible. So this includes pursuing open access publishing options and break down financial barriers to access, as well as using technology to reduce geographic barriers to access, and encourage vernacular translation of briefs, brochures, using online routes like webinars to bring the stakeholders and divergent narratives in the third place. And also we are reflecting and adaptive in the sense that our communication impact activities will adopt a learning by doing approach that relies on iterative learning to adapt approaches to context. Thank you. Over to Renzo.
Thank you so much, Shibaji, for presenting some of the opportunities. And, you know, the emerging voices are so filled with energy and entrepreneurial spirit. And that's why you're very much needed by our TWG in order to spread the word, to spread the word about climate change and how it's really integral in the future of health systems development in our world today. So now we will be shifting gears because we talked already about the TWG. And, by the way, I have to acknowledge that this event is actually the first TWG event and the first collaboration of our TWG with another TWG, which is the EV4GH TWG. And this is the first event since we launched the TWG a few weeks ago in Glasgow, where Revati actually presented about the TWG at COP26. But now we're shifting gears because we also want to talk about and share a bit about our existing and ongoing work on climate resilient and health systems. And later on, we will also ask you emerging voices. Maybe some of you are already working in this space. We would love to hear if you have some projects or initiatives in your respective countries. So we'll pause for a bit because now we will show a short clip. This is from my doctoral research, which I did 3 years ago. And maybe just to encourage everybody in relation to the power of communications, my doctoral research is half written and half in film. And that written version was only read until today by 3 people. That's my doctoral committee, because I have not published them yet in a journal. But my films have been viewed by tens of thousands of people around the world. And so that just speaks to the power of utilizing new media to communicate our research findings. And so maybe Kranti, you can show the short clip about Del Carmen. It's just 5 minutes.
Ang pagkakaunawa ko kasi sa climate change, gawa kasi siya ng tao.
Your regular climate behavior that you are anticipating, biglang nagbago. Kami, naranasan talaga namin yung impacts rin of climate change, which includes the sea level rise, may coral bleaching, may drought.
Dahil ito ay coastal areas, alam ba nila natataas yung level ng dagat? Kung uulan, mas matindi yung precipitation. Kung mag-init, mas prolonged period of drought.
May mga corals daw na siguro sa increase ng, di natin alam, if sa temperature yan, nasisira.
Dahil sa sea level rise, yung mga bahay nila ay abot na yung mga sahig nila.
Dati, kung ganito lang yung kadami ng typhoon, ngayon, iba na, mas madami na.
We were supposedly the first to be hit. We knew the mangroves will protect us. Kung bumagsak yun dito, sabi sa amin, based on simulation, 60% of us would have been gone.
If the problem will occur today as of this moment, parang hindi. Hindi, kasi marami kasi kami kakulangan. Ang pinaka ko talaga manpower, wala din kaming ECG, wala kaming CT scan, wala din kaming X-ray. As a doctor, ang malaking epekto ng climate change sa kalusugan ng mga tao.
Rampat, yung dengue, at saka yung amoeba.
Hindi nakasanayan yun sa mga tao na iniinom. So kung yun ang iinumin nila, iba yung stomach nila.
Hayo ang gumagawa, tapos ang epekto, hayo din ang nag-harvest. Tayo ang gumagawa talaga ng sakit natin.
If your island community will become more inaccessible, how will you design a health system in that area? So what we did, accept na kada isang barangay, our communities, they have different health needs. And because they have different health needs, iba-iba yung approach mo.
Si healthy yung magko-complement kung paano maging malusog yung mga pamayanan pagdating ng climate change.
Your local health system has to really be climate adaptive. It has to be because the changing climate will have new health challenges. And every new health challenges would require a new system, a new solution to resolve it. So it's evolving.
Pag sabihin natin climate smart, hindi siya madadaan kung gaano kayaman ng munisipyo, kundi ito ay madadaan kung paano ba maka-cope up si community sa mga impact ni climate change.
We thought initially it's all about infrastructures and systems. What we realized, it all boils down to basic values. How do we now translate values to become part of your systems and structures?
Mas better na mag-expend tayo ng millions of money for preparation, not for the response.
All of our multi-purpose centers can withstand up to typhoon signal number 4. To protect landslide, isisimento mo talaga yung road. So, it becomes access to health. But it's a climate mitigation as well.
Ang food security, kahit walang dumating na mga goods galing sa ibang probinsya, kaya naming mabuhay.
We're also building one of the first climate field schools for farmers and fisher folks. Is to capacitate the farmer and the fisherman how to do it right if your climate is like this. Your communities, they know more than you do. Then your role becomes a facilitator. Allow them to develop a system that allows adaptation, innovation all the time. Kasi nagbabago yung sakit, depende sa klima mo.
Yung indigenous at science, pagsabayin mo dun, andun yung masasabi mong innovation.
How do you make the right decisions? Babalik at babalik ka sa science. Kaya, yun din isang ina-advocate namin, science-based governance. We now have data to make better and more informed decisions of how to change and adapt to reach our targets, our vision. The problem is, it changes all the time. We live in a world of uncertainty na eh. The only certain is that you have the capacity to address the uncertainty. The local government's at the forefront of climate change. The national government is so far away. If the drought happens next season, they simply go to the local government. That's the structure of, our society.
Pag healthy yung environment mo, natural na healthy din yung mga tao. Pag ang mangrove management mo ay maayos, pag merong bagyo, merong storm source, yung mga tao ay maayos sila.
Their climate adaptability, which started from us understanding yung vulnerabilities namin, to preparing survival, to now having quality of life. Just preparing for the future. Climate change was never a threat to us. Kaysa katakutan mo siya, may iwan na siyang kakampi. That's why it's an opportunity to do something better.
I think that video highlights what Upasona was just mentioning a while ago, the importance of really focusing on the local actions. As mentioned in the film, the local government, the local health system is really in the front lines of this crisis. We hope to see more local solutions and innovations in tackling climate change and how it's impacting the health of local populations in many parts of the world. So that's the story of the Philippines. Instead of I giving you a few slides and giving you a talk, I just brought you instead to the Philippines through that short film. And then now we'll fly to India because Upasona will be sharing a bit about her ongoing work in India on tackling the impacts of climate change on human health. Upasona, please.
Thank you, Renzo. And it's really nice to see the movie. So just let me share my screen. Yeah, is it visible? Okay. So me and Shivaji are working in one of the climate change hotspot of South Asia, that is the Sundarbans, so which we share with our neighboring Bangladesh. So in both the Sundarbans, it is a land of, it is a delta. It is very famous for the Royal Bengal tiger, the man and nature conflict. It's always there. But the people are definitely not only environmentally marginalized, they are improvised, and other social and cultural marginalizations are there. But at the top of this already existing inequalities, the climate change poses uncertain threats in the sphere of livelihood, in the sphere of their shelter, and of course, basically all the social determinants of health. So that is how the people of Sundarbans are facing the climate change impacts and constantly trying to, cope with the changes. As well as the policymakers also, they are also trying to cope up with this kind of changes, because here as the global climate change impacts are very impacting this local delta, the entire change are very rapid. It's not anymore gradual. So there are land erosions, there are cyclones almost every year. There are floodings and high temperature during the summer. So it's a combination, it's a very complex system. So what we found in our, throughout our research, me and Shivaji is researching there for almost a decade. So both in terms of India and Bangladesh, and I believe that this is true for many South Asian countries, there are existing health realities like the communicable and non-communicable diseases, like any other semi-urban and rural areas of South Asia. But at the same time, there are some underdetermined realities of climate change impacts, which is not very visible at present, but it is basically breaking the backbone of the economic system, of the social system, and as well as the health system itself. So they have a cause and effect, but how the people are taking the action, it depends on the frame of knowledge, how they're perceiving climate change and health. So we found that there are a pluralistic frame of knowledge in terms of climate change perceptions, experiences, and through that people are taking actions. So we divide the actors like it can be policymakers, maybe they are the top, in the middle, the civil societies, with the community groups, they are trying to solve or deal with this climate change impacts, and as well as at the below level, they are the communities. So, but every actors, every stakeholders within this, climatic context, they have a different frame of knowledge, and their adaptations are completely varied according to their perceptions and experiences of climate change. So, somewhere we found that this pluralistic knowledge frames are not getting together. And that's how the local level adaptation plannings are very uncertain, because the knowledge of the plural frames of knowledge are giving them an uncertain action. So because there is no commonality, or there is no platform where they can discuss. So this is how the knowledge pathways are going in terms of the community, civil society, and then policymaker. This is the ideal pathways, but somehow this process is very complex. So what we did in terms of our knowledge intervention, we conducted the research in terms of the knowledge intervention, which Shivaji may tell you more about that, how he did the communications. But we have our what we did, like we generate evidence from the very local level, and then we build capacities of very different stakeholders like the policymakers, civil societies, as well as the communities. We build their capacity to utilize those research evidences and taking actions, And we tried our best to engage all the stakeholders into a collaborative platform for the adaptation planning at the local level. So this collaborative knowledge frame, this is the conceptual framework from our sides, and we feel that the community knowledge, the civil society knowledge, and as well as the knowledge brokers like us. So, and at the same time, on the other hand, we have the policymakers, the managers and implementers, and the creation of spaces. What is the main objective of our research? This is the still ongoing research, that there would be the scientific knowledge, the technical, the administrative, and the experiential knowledge of the community should come together to make a better adaptation planning for the future. Because the climate change realities in a marginalized environment like the Sundarbans, it's a reality. We cannot maybe we have to wait for another 20 COPs to settle down, while the global leaders are debating on and kind of pushing each other that what action they need to take. But that reflection of that global policy coming into the local level, it is a long gap, it is a long way to travel. So we need to focus on the local level adaptation planning. We always think like, the policies for everything is like, from top down. We hardly thought about the bottom up approaches of policy making or the local level decision making. So in our research, we are trying our best to gather the knowledge, gather the policy makings from the bottom up approaches. We conducted a couple of action research tools also to engage the communities, engage the civil societies, and make them interfacing with the policymakers. So that is in a nutshell, and we would like to implant this knowledge intervention kind of things in our TWG also. That's why we are encouraging the young minds, like the EV. That's why the EV platform is the best suited for us. That we have a planning to organizing conferences, webinars with the young scientists to build their capacity, who can more and more think about their local adaptation planning and their local policy making and bring it to the global platforms. So that is one of the major focus of our TWG. We would be like to invite you in our academic writing, in our academic workshops. We are planning to have some learning labs where you can build your capacity on the how to in different methodologies and different policy framings. So that is overall our planning. I'd like to stop here. And thanks again. It's a great pleasure to speaking with you all.
Thank you so much, Upasona, for sharing some of the frameworks that you're actually using in your investigations in India. And while we're still in India, let me call on Shibaji to share about his work at the nexus of climate change, health, and communication. Shibaji, the mic is yours.
Yeah, thank you. As Upasana was saying, she told about the framings and knowledge, and so what we are trying to do is we are trying to use various participatory visual methods, visual ethnography, like photo voice, like re-photography, like documentary photography, photo elicitation, so that we always have a lot of evidence that's coming from, even through qualitative studies, that's coming from communities. But here we want to reverse the gaze and think about through the lens of the community, through their perspective, about what health systems feels to them, and especially in the climatically fragile zones. So we have been doing this, and now with the TWG, with its focus and with its frame, we are trying to merge the two things together, like the health systems, the suboptimal health systems, and the climate change and the various dynamics of, the refugee dynamics of climate change. How does it affect health? And that's the first thing that we're trying to find out. And secondly is what's to the half the population, what happens to women when there is huge scale of migration, and what are the health challenges, what are the supply related challenges that they have to face. So I will stick to having said that, we'll stick still to the how we are trying to at the same time, since these are advocacy channels, this research is also goes to certain the outputs of research at certain ways goes to advocacy bit, in which I want to share with the emerging voices is how we try to uh, float this to other and to impress upon, convince others to look from the view of the community. So the nature of the findings, now this will have our diverse implications for multiple audiences. This working in climate change, health systems, including working in health system resilience adaptation projects. Now, we are planning to disseminate this to a wide variety of audience, HSG members, SSG, TWGs, and beyond, to provoke further learning and actions. Our strategy is also to collate storytelling materials. As Renzo was saying that, his PhD reached 3 people, but for sharing it and at least for making people aware of it and get it to the discussion domain, film may be a better idea to, to float the messages. So we are collating storytelling materials through interested members and monitoring opportunities for coverage to non-academic channels also. Now, HSC members and important nodes like the emerging voices are also welcome to share the film, the written materials from the study areas to document processes of transformation, which we will be using to inform stories, exhibitions, and briefings. Now, we have got, say, 6 months of experience, but with this 6 months, we know where did we go wrong or what did we have to do a better. So we will devise a global strategy to share this multiple non-academic outputs, like the blogs, the audiovisual materials, the newspaper articles, the policy briefs, photo voice, and life histories. So in order to raise knowledge about the TWG and our sister TWGs like emerging voices, we are open to potential transformative alliances through, one way can be through evocative, compelling narratives and images and pop-up exhibitions. Now, outputs can include policy briefs, e-newsletters, social media articles, blog posts, and news. And we can share it through the common websites and through the institutional websites of our members. So we are also rounding up the process of selecting academic macro directions and articles and disseminate through channels, through well-cited journals, which will be selected for their ability to reach and to the relevant audience and encourage engagement and feedback. So I will just share we have a Twitter presence and we'll share the Twitter. So because we were, one of the experiences of this newly formed TWG was COP, in which we had multiple sessions through in the health pavilion and in blue zone of the conference. And we were more and more, collaborations with other TWGs when the next COP happens. So since we are, this is one thing I want to flag, since we are producing a lot of this research with the communities, with the partners in the climatically vulnerable zones. So we are trying to be, transparent and open and ensure that research is not dominated by any particular stakeholder or lobbies. For this purpose, discussions and decisions pertaining to the appropriateness of approaches will reflect the view of our stakeholders, the people who are bearing the brunt of climate change as well. We will also be stressing on sharing more data and evidence to fill up the policy and knowledge gaps, as Upasona and others have said, through storylines, narratives, life histories, archival data, visual data through embedded mediums such as photo voice. through democratic advocacy spaces like roundtables, it can be COP, through capacity sharing exercises, and through our partner TWGs and policy influencers of the health system. Thank you. I will give it back to Renzo.
Thank you so much, Shibaji. And again, you've just highlighted and re-emphasized the importance of using different forms of communication and dissemination. And in fact, when I was listening to you, reflecting on the film that I made, and actually you also have a film which Kranti will share later on to our emerging voices. Kranti is now collecting some links to share to all of you, because there's a growing body of resources on this young nexus of climate change and health systems. What I'm realizing is that climate change is very visual. You know, in health systems, we're talking about so many different issues, but many of them perhaps are usually represented in numbers. How many mothers have benefited from a certain type of service, or how much medicines have been supplied to, you know, pharmacies in a particular locale. These are all invisible, you know, processes in health systems. But climate change is so visual. You can see the house being inundated by sea level rise, or a farmland that is destroyed by an intense flooding and storms. And so there's really a great opportunity for using new ways of documentation, including visual forms of documentation. So thanks, Shibaji. Now I will call Revati Phalkey, because in the UK, and I know Revati is also from India, but she's also working now in the UK. She's also been doing amazing stuff in the United Kingdom's Health Security Agency in terms of advancing this area of health systems and climate change. Revati, maybe you can talk about it very briefly. Thanks.
Yeah, so I am going to, in the interest of time, just highlight a couple of projects that we're doing at the global and the national level. So I'll start with the COP26, because obviously we played quite a role in the health messaging that went out for COP26, and the design of the contributions to the design of the 5 campaign areas that were run in COP26. And 2 of these were, of course, focusing on climate resilient health systems. So one was on strengthening the resilience within health systems, and then the second one was to improve the environmental sustainability of the system. And details of these are available. If you just Google COP26 health program, you'll be kind of, you would go to the WHO website, where you will find 2 slide decks, one on the main message, one on key case studies that we have put together, and a description of this of the 5 campaign areas. So the first, and I'm very pleased to say that at COP, we had almost 52 countries that signed up to the commitments that were put forward through these 2 campaign areas of the UK presidency. So I think that was a very promising thing that came out, particularly for the health systems area of resilience. The second thing that the COP26 discussions in the build up to COP, there were 2 parallel processes that were happening. One was the Adaptation Action Alliance, the coalition, AAC, and then the Adaptation Research Alliance, so ARA and AAC. And so as part of the ARA process, we did a consultation, a global consultation on what are the key research gaps for climate resilience, resilient and sustainable health systems. And that report is also available for colleagues, if they wanted to look at what came out of that consultation, where almost 60 experts from the world gave their opinion of the direction for where research in this area should be prioritized, or at least the direction of it, because obviously this has to be led by countries. Now, within UK, of course, my team is responsible for the risk assessments of the 4 nations. And of course, we have included the risks to the health system, 4 nation health systems within the UK. And of course, these are conversations ongoing that we will be taking forward. And I think all of us know that my counterpart, the NHS, National Health Service, is the first high-income country health system that has declared to be net zero 5 years before the rest by 2045. So a lot of work is ongoing in how we can support health facilities and the whole health system. So a colleague of mine leads on that, Nick Watts, whom you must have heard on several occasions in social media and at COP26 as well. So we are now setting up a knowledge hub internally for the 4 nations. These are all, again, just beginning. You know, we are at the start of these things. Work has happened, but the joining up is happening at now. And then the second thing that we are initiating is also something called as a risk assessment toolkit for local authorities. And we have about 404 local authorities, out of which about 300 have declared a climate emergency. So we are developing now a all hazards toolkit for them to understand how to monitor the risks of climate change on the health system and population health, but also how to respond to it. Now, as the National Public Health Institution of the UK, we are part of an international network, which is called the IANFI, International Association of National Public Health Institutions, which represents about 110 institutions globally from 95 countries. So we've established a climate change and health working group within that network. And we are hoping to host the first major conference of this, which will focus hopefully on, again, under negotiation, on climate resilient health systems in summer next year. So as soon as information becomes available to us, we will be passing it on to everybody through our website. Then, of course, we work very closely with the WHO as well. We will, through the regional office of Europe, we have put together a position paper of how the 54 countries should be addressing climate resilience of health systems, and how should we bring the evidence centrally within the region. And that's the work that we are doing at the regional level. I will end with saying our priorities for capacity strengthening. So 2 activities that are ongoing with the focus on capacity strengthening for the methods bit, but also for evidence collation. One is a project which is Resilient and Sustainable Systems for Health, where we are developing training materials which will be disseminated to 10 countries, 5 Francophone and 5 Anglophone, and components. There are components within that which speak to the climate prioritization, climate change and health prioritization. And then we are also looking at the curriculum in 7 universities in Central Asia to work with colleagues, and that's a mentoring role that we are doing through my academic hat, because I'm also an associate professor for global health at the University of Heidelberg. And these 2 activities are carried out through the Heidelberg hat, where we are going through the curriculum, Masters in Public Health, Masters in Global Health, and undergraduate medicine curriculum, to review what are the entry points for us to put short courses on this topic. And I'll end with 2 other week-long courses which we do on health system strengthening, which has elements of climate resilience. One in May at the University of Heidelberg in Germany, and one in June at the University of Nottingham in the UK. Over.
Thank you so much, Revati, for that panoply of activities that you've been doing, in the area of climate and health systems, and most especially for the updates related to COP26. You mentioned nearly 50 countries and counting have already committed to become climate resilient and low carbon health systems. And so to the emerging voices in Dubai, your first assignment from us is to Google and visit the website of the WHO and check if your country is one of the 50 countries, because if not, then maybe one of your first tasks is to convince your Ministry of Health to make such a commitment. And embarrassingly, the Philippines is not one of the 50 countries, but I am working hard now to convince them to join so that in COP27 in Egypt, which is a year from now, we will be part of this growing collective of national health systems committed to a healthy planet. So now we have 30 minutes remaining, and we want to make sure that we are able to hear from you as well. I'm already seeing some of you tweeting, and to those who have not yet tweeted, please start spreading the virus of climate and health, not COVID, to your colleagues and friends in the social media. Special shout out to my friend and colleague and classmate back from med school, J.R. Ong. You're in the room, who's raising the Filipino flag there in in EV4GH 2020. And I hope that all of you will follow his example, live tweeting about this important conversation. So I understand there's a microphone in the room that is roving. Maybe any of you would like to start the ball rolling, a question or an insight, a comment, or even an example of what you're doing now on climate and health. Is there anyone?
Thank you so much, Renzo.
Yes.
We will see if anybody has any questions. Habib?
I have. So can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, but maybe a bit, please make it a bit louder. I
Do you
think the
wanna
room is too massive.
So can you hear me now?
Yes, and try to speak slowly so that we can really pick up the question. Thank you.
I'm working on that one. So thank you very much for your presentation, and I actually echo what you said. I am leading a health equity unit within the British Columbia part of Canada, and that's where we have seen that climate is actually driving our vulnerable population towards very worse health outcomes. And that's where we have made some significant progress, and the progress has been made in the multi-sectoral policy change part of that. So I just wanted to comment that that is a very important part, though may it not be seen as an immediate priority, but what we have seen, for example, in our homeless population, which were like already without a shelter, and when there was this heat wave in Canada, it became very difficult for them because most of them are already suffering from a lot of comorbidities. So thank you very much for your presentation, and I look forward to collaborating with you more on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And please join our thematic working group. And thanks for also sharing the example of Canada, in particular, the British Columbia. We're very much aware of what's happening there. We've seen it in the news from extreme heat all the way to, I think there are also flooding incidents. And it just tells us that no region in the world is immune to the impacts of climate change and its health consequences. We always think of, oh, maybe this is an issue only for low and middle income countries, but we're seeing it in Canada. We're seeing it in Australia with the bushfires. We also saw it in Germany a few months ago, which was hit by intense flooding, claiming hundreds of lives. And so this is a global issue, and it's high time for the health policy and systems research community to step up and take this challenge head on. So thank you for your sharing. And maybe while we're waiting for the next question, if I can just have a show of hands, who among you in the room, we can see all of you sitting down, who among you have actually been working in the climate and health space, maybe as a main job or even just tangentially, maybe you're just starting to explore this arena? Please raise your hands. And I actually can only see one. Maybe the next question is, who among you, because of this session, is now interested in exploring this under-examined area of climate and health? Can we have a show of hands? Okay, I think only 2 hands were added up. So I think Revati and colleagues, we need to do a better job in recruiting and talking about this important nexus. Anyone else who would like to ask questions or share their insights and comments?
I have a question. Now we know one of the important driver of climate change is our global economic activities. That is fundamentally premised on the economic liberalization and globalization ideologies, that believes in the maximum extraction of natural resources for the profit maximization. I think that is an elephant in the room, and that is on one side. And now I am a bit confused regarding the term, the climate resilient health system. And what does it actually mean? Now we anticipate a huge tsunami is going to take place. And are we preparing a skating board that will enable us to safely navigate through this emerging tsunami? Or are we doing something to stop this tsunami? Are we, stopping the fundamental drivers of this climate change? It is big confusion. I am not telling that it is bad, that we don't need a climate resilience is needed. But where are we, fundamentally focusing on? Are we looking at the root causes or, the immediate issue that confronts us?
Thank you very much for that very important question. So, I guess that's a question for the entire thematic working group. Are we just wanting to build health systems that are reactive and responsive to climate change and, take it as a given? Or do we want to even go beyond and work towards mitigating climate change and really holding these governments to account when it comes to, for instance, their decarbonization commitments from COP26? I can see Revati unmuting her mic. Please, Revati.
Yeah, so I would definitely say, of course, you can't work in isolation because health systems do not operate in isolation. And I think that's the first message, that we do need to take into account every other system that is propping up the health system for service delivery. And don't forget, the objective of the thematic working group is resilience and sustainability within health systems. So obviously with that sustainability word itself, we have brought in the sustainability of the health systems, but also the environmental systems, because we know that major kind of, dependence of health systems on the environmental systems for understanding the health impacts, but also the emerging diseases and so on and so forth, antimicrobial resistance. You can't look at health systems in isolation. And then two other points that what we would like to do is what do we mean by resilience of health systems? So, there is a standard understanding of it at the moment about resilience within health systems. And remember that this is a concept that has come from ecosystems into health systems. So health systems have adopted this more recently after the Ebola crisis and now after the COVID crisis, where we are talking about resilience within health systems much more than we did before. And that's, of course, the ability of the system to sense, to detect, to respond, to recover, and to learn from the events that they are facing. And because this is climate change, this is not about short duration, high impact, low probability events. This is about the steady changes that are happening, because they are as important as the other extreme events that the colleague mentioned on the call. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Revati, for your words of wisdom. And, you were mentioning about, we're not just looking at health systems per se, we're looking at broader systems. And I think this is an invitation for us in the health policy and research systems community to start working with climatologists, ecologists, veterinarians who are in the business of animal health, and so many other disciplines. So this is just an invitation to really furthering the transdisciplinary work that HPSR is already known for. I think we need to go beyond, because now we're dealing not just with the health of people, we're also dealing with the health of the planet as well. So thanks, Revati. Any other points? Or Upasona, Shibaji, just let me know if you want to add as well.
Can I just make one more point?
Please, Revati.
When we say health systems, we shouldn't forget community health systems, because community health systems are as important as the formal systems.
Right.
Sorry.
We're not just referring to the 6 building blocks here, right? And because I remember Upasona was also talking about different knowledge pathways, right? And perhaps in HPSR, we're more familiar with the conventional pathways from academia to policymakers. But how about knowledge coming from the people, right? Who are in the front lines? Farmers are already seeing the impacts of climate change. They don't need to be dictated by a scientist on what's happening. Upasona, do you want to add something?
Yeah, so just to add a couple of points in the ongoing discussion, that's, we always neglect the indigenous knowledges, because these people, they are the experiencing in their daily lives, and they have the knowledge how the change is happening and how the change is impacting them. So bringing their knowledge, their voices into the policy making is as important as, like the global leaders discussing in COP. So that things, maybe this is the very close link with the the health system research, and with that we often neglect. and maybe we can start digging out our evidences in the light of the health system research and how the climate change is impacting the human health at the local level. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Upasona. And, a few days ago, I was also in another conversation and we were talking, maybe COP27 should be negotiated by indigenous leaders, right?
Exactly.
By young people, by health professionals. And we should get rid of this, pardon the political incorrectness, these negotiators and politicians who do not put people and planet at the center of the negotiations of climate diplomacy. Shibaji, please, you want to add?
I was also thinking that we see climate change as something, it's very abstract in sense to a lot of people, and we talk about 2050, 2030, but to a lot of people in the riverine regions in Southeast Asia, it's we are talking about millions. Like in Sundarbans, we have got 7.5 million population. And it can go underwater, and islands are already going underwater. So the point I'm trying to make, we do not have a lot of time also. And for this one, it's also to look from the climate justice lens in order when you approach the health system. So what will be the health system look like for a person who is not very sure whether his or her island will be there after 2 years. So we also need to look at health from emergency point of view, look at, healthy relocation, if that is one of the strategies that are being into mind. But in a lot of cases and a lot of regions in the world, we really do not have that much time, and there is complete uncertainty of policy, uncertainty of knowledge. There is no strong, action, or there's not a body who's looking at this thing, which has to somewhere, come in and say that we are accountable.
Thank you so much, Shibaji. And thanks for reminding us about the time element here, right? It's not like, the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, has given us, still has 9 years remaining. And it's likely that we will not be able to achieve the SDGs. But the climate crisis also gave us a deadline, 2030, and we need to make sure that we're able to stabilize the climate before it reaches that point of no return. And, I was just reading a recent article published, I think, just this past week, describing both COVID and the climate crisis as a super wicked problem. And one of the characteristics of a super wicked problem is that time is running out. Other features include there's no central authority. And that's why Upasona's point about the importance of local action and decentralized action and action happening at the same time in all places is so important. So emerging voices, you play a critical role in really multiplying our efforts. Our small TWG cannot really address all of these challenges by ourselves. And the other features of a super wicked problem is that those causing the problem also want to solve it, right? So that's quite an interesting, and that somehow resonates with what I said about COP26 a while ago, and that policies irrationally discount the future. And so, because we're so short-term in thinking, we actually fail to take into account the long-term implications of climate change, which will not only impact ourselves, but also the future children of the world. Revati, I'm seeing your hand raised.
So I'm not speaking in the defense of the COP processes, because I know the challenges that I've seen and witnessed.
Your country is the host country.
Yes, that, but also, the tremendous pressure that the negotiators are under when we come to the table. And remember that when we come to the table, that's just the final kind of, coming out of all the discussions which happen outside. And I completely agree with the shortcomings, but every process has limitations. And I think that we need that framing, because that's the platform where 197 countries came together and kept the 1.5 ambition, at least at insight. I will not say within reach, but in sight. And I think that process is as important as the action that follows this. But that process has no meaning. Those commitments have very little power if they are not followed by the resources and the action on the ground. So I think that balance, everything is important, because climate change is a problem that you need to attack it from multiple sides, and everybody is holding that piece of a puzzle, and we have to bring that piece of the puzzle to the table. Otherwise, the picture is incomplete. So.
Indeed, Revati, and maybe to make sure that COP27 is a better COP, we should think of ways to influence that through our small yet growing TWG, and I'm sure the emerging voices can help us, create a solid front for COP27 in Egypt. Maybe we can present and showcase our work in building climate resilient and low carbon health systems. We only have around 13 minutes remaining, and I still want to have some more questions and comments from our colleagues in Dubai, and then we will proceed with our concluding remarks about our visions for the future. Any other question?
Yes, dear.
Hello, is it Cesar?
Yeah.
Hi, Cesar. Buenos dias.
I welcome all the members of this new thematic working group. So it's easy to know this possibility to join you and collaborate. My question is raised in my context. I believe that is shared with you in Filipinas because I want to know what strategies have you identified to becoming from civil society to sustain the voices of the activists for climate change and ecology? Because, for example, in Colombia, and I know that is the case similar for Filipinas, these activists are in the top of murder and threats. So how we can from
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you say again the question, please?
Okay. What strategies have you identified from civil society to protect the voices of the activists on planetary health and ecology science? For example, in Colombia, they are in risk of murder and isolation. What is your experience? What do you have identified around the world to prevent and maintain the movement for advocacy for ecology live?
Right. Thank you very much. And of course, we would love to have you as part of our TWG. We're still looking for colleagues and members from Latin America. Maybe you can help us identify members from that part of the world. Any comments from my colleagues regarding that question about civil society? How can we, protect our advocates, and activists who are fighting for healthy people, healthy planet, healthy climate. In the Philippines, unfortunately, we always say that one of the most endangered species are environmental activists, especially those who are working in the front lines. So we really need to work in solidarity with social movements and civil society to make sure that their voices are not silenced and their lives are being protected. What is the role of the HPSR community, including this TWG? Any comments, any insights?
I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I can make a start. Two things. So not from the environment side. I can say that how we have worked towards including civil society voices in the work that we do. So we all know the IFRC, the International Federation for Red Cross Red Crescent Societies, and they have, I don't even remember how many million of voluntary health workers who are working with them. And two processes within which we have brought them as kind of, main contributors to the activities that we do, that in the build up to COP26, we organized a seminar series every month on a particular topic of how climate change is affecting health. And in every of those panelists, we had always had 4 panelists. We had somebody from a UN organization representing policy. We had an academic who would talk about the research methods, a practitioner from a national public health institution, and a civil society representative who would say what are the challenges of kind of, working at the ground level for this. And then within the setting of the agenda for the research priorities that we did under the Adaptation Research Alliance, we partnered with the Red Cross, Red Crescent societies to have, we co-led the process basically, so that, we were setting an agenda where they and us did it together in consultation with the rest of the things. But that doesn't really answer his question, because, in that space, I personally am not as active as I would like to be.
Yep. And admittedly, it's not an easy question, but also I think it's a reminder for us in HPSR community in global health that in the time of COVID and climate change, we cannot just be any more pure academics. We really need to also embrace, activism, because as mentioned by Shibaji, time is running out and lives are at stake. Upasona, do you want to add something?
Yes, so from my experience, we were always working with the civil societies who are basically representing the communities, especially the marginalized communities who are, only focusing on sustaining every day. So that's particular type of communities need their voices to be raised through these civil society partners. But at the same time, some balance, as Revati has already mentioned, some balance should be there, because the policymakers' jobs and is also very, very crucial, because they have to, the improvised countries, the low and middle income countries, we do not have much luxuries to make separate policies for every small communities. So the job of the policymakers are very complex, and so somehow this civil society voice, the activism, and the hardcore administrative voices need a balance so that the future of the communities can be safer. So just Revati has already mentioned that's the job for the COP26 negotiation, and as well as the local communities, which we all mentioned, that somehow this balance is reflected in the local context of administrator and the civil society's activism. So it's basically a multi-sectoral thing which need to be understood by every stakeholder, that the climate change problem cannot be solved only by the activism or only by the policy making or only by the community's action. It is a multifaceted problem, should be solved by a multi-sectoral platform. So that's maybe a future vision.
Thank you very much, Upasona. And we in the research community also plays a critical role, not just in generating the evidence, but also presenting the solutions, the potential solutions, and even helping shape alternative blueprints for the future. Yeah. How does future health systems look like in the era of a warming planet, but also facing myriad threats such as future pandemics? Of course, unfortunately, if we do not get our acts together to prevent the next one, it will inevitably happen. And so, this is also in relation to Revati's comment a while ago about the resilience agenda for health systems, because health systems will need to be addressing, not just one type of hazard, but so many different kinds of hazard. You used the phrase all hazards approach, Revati, in your earlier remarks. So we're running out of time, just like with the climate crisis, we're running out of time. And so we really want to invite all of you to be part of this journey of the Thematic Working Group on climate resilient and sustainable health systems. We cannot do it alone. We cannot do it with just our small group. We need all of you. And in the 21st century, we cannot anymore, I mean, the global health sector, the health policy and systems research community cannot anymore be operating as if the climate is okay. Okay, we need to find ways to incorporate climate change in our different research and practices. You might be working on gender and health systems. Maybe it's time to look into the climate implications. You might be working on universal health care, but how can we design UHC that is not just climate adaptive, but also green and sustainable? And Revati shared with us a while ago that 50 countries have already made a commitment. That is a good place to start. And I think finally, we have now an opportunity to really work together towards advancing these parallel causes of health improvement, but also protecting our planet's integrity. Climate change is certainly the pressing issue of our day, and we have more other planetary threats that are emerging. Biodiversity loss. Revati mentioned antimicrobial resistance, which is also a very important existential threat to humanity. Ocean acidification, deforestation, freshwater depletion, etc. And perhaps some of you are very familiar with my personal advocacy, which is the adoption and the expansion of the planetary health approach. Because in planetary health, it's not anymore just the people who are our patients. The planet is our patient as well. So I think that's it, right? We don't have enough time anymore. And this is just the start of a conversation. We hope that this is just the first of the many collaborations between our TWG and the TWG of the Emerging Voices for Global Health. Hopefully, next time it will be face-to-face. Let's hope that the COVID situation continues to improve so that we can all be in Colombia in 2022. And we'll definitely have more exciting events of sharing and learning together. I remember when I was in Liverpool at the 5th Global Symposium on Health Systems Research, out of the 2,000 abstracts, there's only one abstract that used the phrase climate change. And that's in Liverpool 4 years ago. Last year, of course, in the Dubai conference, we have several sessions focusing on climate change and health systems. Upasona, Shibaji, and I actually spoke in one of those. And of course, we'll make sure that in Colombia and in the future conferences of Health Systems Global, we will have more and a much greater attention to the nexus of climate change and health systems. And we can only do that if you will join us in our TWG. So thank you very much. Thank you. And yeah, be safe and let's keep in touch via Twitter. Join us. Shibaji shared with you our membership links, and we will provide you with more information in the days to come. Thank you again and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Renzo, Upasana, Revati, and Shibaji. I think the energy of Renzo is quite infectious. All of us will have to agree. I think you only saw 2 hands going up, but there were multiple hands going up when you asked that second question. So definitely, I think a lot more people have been inspired by your session today. I tried to summarize a few things that I found very interesting, and but it's not going to do justice, I'm sure. But I'll try to still summarize. I think the call for urgent collective action is quite evident and quite clear. And they are inviting collaboration, they are inviting all of us to be a part of this new TWG, and for strengthening the capacity in terms of making our world more climate resilient. And also to create and share evidence and becoming the leaders that are needed to bring this change. Also, just a few things that I thought maybe in the end we can sort of highlight. There was a call for abstracts for HSR 2022. I hope you all made note of that. And we saw how the video that was shared was a very strong and effective tool to collect and disseminate evidence and also I think a strong tool for resulting in action. So I hope all of us can see how we can use that media for, of course, collecting evidence, but also sharing evidence. I think of note was also something about how we need to involve the community in a lot of these research, of course, and also in action and policy, and give credit to the indigenous communities about knowing their own issues and also being able to address their issues and giving them a say in addressing their issues. I think I will, I know I haven't summarized, because so much was covered, but I'm really thankful to all of you, the moderator and the panelists, for your time. And I think we all are. Thank you so much. We can wrap up for this session.
Thank you very much. And special shout out to Nasreen Jasani, EV4GH 2014, also in the room. She's tweeting me right now. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.